As crazy as it sounds, we are nearing the end of the 2022 fantasy football season. Man, it feels like it goes by so quick. We talk about it forever and then it just, in a snap, it goes by. I don't know if that's just me. Maybe it is. But I wanted to give you guys an updated tier ranking for Dynasty wide receivers. If you want to know where I currently view the landscape of wide receivers in Dynasty football, well, I'm about to show you my top 60. I mean, how much more could you really ask for here? My top 60 wide receivers as it currently stands and in tiers. Do me a favor, drop a like, subscribe if you like the content, and comment down below what is one wide receiver at this point. You know, we still have the fantasy playoffs left that you think could skyrocket up Dynasty rankings to end the season. All right, so we're gonna go from the bottom and then we're gonna go all the way back up to the top. So starting in the F tier, and to be clear, look, if there's a wide receiver that's not on this list, it doesn't mean I hate that wide receiver. It just means that I don't value them over some of these other wide receivers. So we're gonna start from the bottom and then move our way up to the top. So let's add Nico Collins there. Nico Collins, interesting wide receiver. You know, my co-host Badaki is a big fan of Nico Collins, and there's a lot to like there. 6'4", 215 pounds. He's had a couple games where he's had 9-10 targets, put over 10 points up. I just struggle to see Nico Collins being someone who's going to stand out from the future wide receiver classes. I don't think he's going to be any higher than a wide receiver 3 on this team. So that's why I struggle to put him any higher there. Next, we'll go Curtis Samuel. You know, Curtis Samuel was one of those guys this offseason that I was encouraging people to go out and buy, just because I thought like his value was at an all-time low at that time. And I think there's this misconception, because it feels like he's been around forever, that he's just an older player. But he's 26 years old. He has 1 year left on that contract in Washington. And then after that, he'll be 27 years old. A 27-year-old wide receiver with his speed, who knows where he could sign in free agency. So I still think we should put some value on Curtis Samuel, even though I think in Washington, you're going to start to see Jahan Dotson usage go up, from really next season onwards. Next wide receiver is a receiver that I would personally encourage people to go out and buy. I think he's out of sight, out of mind right now, but could play a big role, especially if his former quarterback is drafted to his current team. We're talking about John Mechie, probably going to play the slot wide receiver when he's back healthy. Obviously, the most important thing for him is to beat that cancer, and he was able to do that. So I anticipate him being back on the field pursuing his dreams next year. Not the tallest guy, not the fastest guy. John Mechie is not elite in any single area, but he has put up major production with Bryce Young, and as of right now, he looks like the likely number 1 overall pick, regardless of how you feel about the 2023 draft class. Next, how about Joshua Palmer? I think some people in the Dynasty industry could have him a little bit higher. For me, Palmer, kind of like Nico Collins. Again, I think he's a really good wide receiver 3 on a team. I struggle to see a scenario in which he overtakes Mike Williams or Keenan Allen, even though Keenan is getting older. And I wouldn't be surprised personally if the Chargers went out and drafted a wide receiver in this year's draft, knowing how injury prone their wide receiver core is right now moving forward with Justin Herbert. Don't be surprised if the Chargers go out and get a Jordan Addison, a Quentin Johnston, one of these massive wide receivers in this year's class that could really help this team moving forward, and really a young star wide receiver for Herbert to build around. I like Palmer. I like his game. Wide receiver 32 on the year. He's done some impressive things, but I can't move him any higher than that. All right, next we got Allen Lazard. You know, I would say similar to Curtis Samuel, there's a misconception about Lazard's age. He is only 26 years old. But again, a lot of these guys in this tier, I struggle to see them ever reaching that true dominant wide receiver 1 status. And that's how I would feel about Lazard as well. We also don't know the future with his quarterback. Next, how about Donovan Peoples-Jones? I don't know if my friend Daniel Ilioy is going to watch this, but he's going to be hyped to see Donovan Peoples-Jones on this list. Freak athlete, 5-star recruit out of Michigan, 6'2", 204 pounds, great speed, can stretch the field. And guess who is coming back this week? Deshaun Watson Deshaun Watson was able to do something really special with Will Fuller, that connection they had. I wonder if Donovan Peoples-Jones can fill that role for Deshaun Watson. If he can, I mean, we could be talking about Donovan Peoples-Jones. He could be a skyrocketer, if that's even a word, towards the end of the season. Next, Romeo Doubs showed a lot to begin the year. Again, another one of these wide receivers. He's not the fastest guy. He's not the best contested catcher. He's not the best route runner, but he's really good in a lot of different areas. And while his ceiling was never as high as Christian Watson, he came in more pro ready. Am I feeling like Doubs can be a superstar in the league? No, but I think he could be kind of like, think about what Michael Gallup was for the Cowboys there before he got injured. A good flex play at times. Next, we have Jakobi Meyers, and there's going to be a Jakobi Meyers stan group out there that's angry that he's not higher. 26 years old. Look, a good player that you can move all around the field, but again, not someone that I personally think can ever reach the heights of like a wide receiver 2 in Dynasty. I just don't see that ever happening. Next, very talented wide receiver, but the big question is, can he ever put up production after his rookie year? And that is Chase Claypool, traded to the Bears rather, on a contract year. We have no idea where he's going to go. If he's going to stay in Chicago, it's also an option. But the thing that intrigues me about him is obviously the size, 6'4", 238, the speed, and he's a question mark, meaning where will he go? Could he find his way into a better situation next season? It's hard to say, but it certainly is possible. All right, next, how about Wan'Dale Robinson? You know, Wan'Dale's interesting because these sort of smaller prospects, I had to learn the hard way over the last couple years to really limit my expectations for these type of prospects. 5'8", 185 pounds. I mean, how many different ways can Wan'Dale truly be utilized? And if he is heavily utilized, are we sure that injuries won't happen? And that's been my concern. I was in love with Rondale Moore. We'll talk about him in a second, but I kind of had to learn as I went through Dynasty football. You can like these guys. They can be exciting to watch on film out of college, but in the NFL, everyone's got speed, everyone's got size, and you can only really use them in certain ways. You know, can you use them in the slot? Can't use them outside, that's for sure. Can you use them as a gadget guy on sweeps? So unless you have a very creative coach, it's going to be difficult to really see Wan'Dale Robinson, in my opinion, ever become like a top 24 guy in my rankings. And then again, like, even if you were to trade for him, wouldn't you be worried about injury? I would be worried about injury. Someone who's at 185 pounds being tackled by these 250 plus pound linebackers on a daily basis. All right, next, another rookie prospect that I like. He has been subject to really bad quarterback play. That is Alec Pierce. And also Paris Campbell, who's just not going away. And I don't have Paris Campbell on this list. That might be a miss for me. You can let me know in the comments below. But there are just other wide receivers I prefer over Paris Campbell. The injury history with Paris Campbell. I like Alec Pierce. As far as speed goes, he is extremely quick, can definitely stretch the field. 6'3", has the size, 211 pounds. And if you guys know this channel, you will know in the pre-draft process, what do we always say about him? Has the strongest hands in the class, and I still think that's true. One-on-one balls are his specialty. Will they ever get a quarterback upgrade? I don't know. So he feels more like a wide receiver 2 for his career. But I mean, that could be valuable if a superstar quarterback somehow finds their way to Indy. All right, next, Tyler Lockett. And you know, this could be disrespectful to have Tyler Lockett all the way down here on this list. I know there will be people who will be upset about that as I try to find him. But the reality is, Tyler Lockett, as much as we like him, he is 30 years old now. He'll be 31 soon. Think about trying to sell Adam Thielen right now. Think about 2 years ago, if you could have sold Adam Thielen for a second-round pick, an early second, would you have done it? I mean, if you're not competing, of course. But now we're talking about Tyler Lockett, 30 years old, will be 31 soon, right? I mean, like, where's the point where his value dips off? And even if you think he's a fantastic player and he can play until he's 34, that doesn't mean the rest of the community is going to value him that way. So Tyler Lockett playing really well right now. I just don't know how long he can put up this kind of production. Next, a player who just went down to injury. Very unfortunate. I know a lot of people were high on this player before the year, and a lot of people had high expectations. For me, it was always, okay, the opportunity is going to be there for Darnell Mooney. The targets will be there for Darnell Mooney, but I don't see him as a career wide receiver one. A lot of people had him ranked as like inside their top 30. My entire thought process this entire year was he'll be great this year on targets. That was wrong, right? Well, he had a nice little bounce back there. He'll be great this year on targets, but he will not be the future wide receiver one of this team. He will be replaced. So we can't value him as if he's going to get these type of opportunities for the rest of his career, because it's just not going to happen. Now with the injury, I mean, it's hard to really put him any higher than that. Next, a player that a lot of people have probably given up on. I'm not ready to give up on him just yet. I really liked him out of Western Michigan. Rookie wide receiver picked in the second round, Sky Moore. Biggest hands in the class. I think if the Chiefs just put him in the slot, you could see him dominate truly. I said this on the redraft channel. If you give Sky Moore 7 to 8 targets a game, he's probably a top 24 wide receiver in that offense. The issue is Juju, and Juju's playing well, and will he be re-signed? We don't know. Now you brought in Kadarius Toney. So last 2 games, 6 targets in each of those games, the most he's had in the entire year. In fact, I think in the last 2 games, he's had more targets than he's had in the first 10 weeks, but a talented player on a good team. If I had Sky Moore in Dynasty, I certainly would not sell him low. It's just one of those players. You have to wait and hope that the situation gets a little bit better, because it definitely could. All right, that is it for the F tier. Moving up to the D tier. And I wish I could have named these a little bit better, because like F doesn't mean that they're bad players. But at the end of this tier, I have Mike Williams and I have Keenan Allen. Now you can tell me what your flavor is, what you prefer in Dynasty football. Mike Williams is a little bit younger, but I think if I was a win now team, you would obviously prefer Keenan Allen. He's going to be the target monster on that team, and I don't really anticipate that changing. Next, just like Wan'Dale Robinson, how about Rondale Moore? A player I really loved out of Purdue. Loved his film. It was very exciting to watch him. He came back here week 4. Honestly, from week 4 to week 10, he's actually been really, really good. The issue is that we don't know how long it's going to last. Again, will the injuries ever stop for him? You would hope so, but we don't know that. Again, from week 4 to week 10, very, very good stretch for him. Let's have a look. From week 4 to week 10, Rondale Moore, was the wide receiver 17 in fantasy football. Put up some good numbers in that stretch, had a touchdown, was used towards the line of scrimmage, was used kind of in that Greg Dortch role, oddly enough. But now we have Hollywood Brown back, we have D-Hop back, and when Cliff is inevitably fired, what will be the new head coach's vision for a Rondale Moore? We don't know the answer. I like the player. I just can't put him any higher than that. All right, we have a Bronco wide receiver next, and I can't express how disappointed I am in the Broncos offense. Let's ride, nation. I mean, no, we're not riding anywhere. The only place that we're riding is to a retirement home, because it's not worked out well. Cortland Sutton, to be fair, he hasn't really looked like his dominant self either. More of a contested catcher, and we haven't seen really Russell Wilson be able to read the field well. That doesn't bode well for him. Like the player, thought I liked the situation, but it's hard to put him any higher than this. He hasn't been injured all year, and he's the wide receiver 30. That is crazy. I don't think anyone expected him to be this low. All right, next, a Kansas City wide receiver just joined them, Kadarius Toney. Where is he? Kadarius Toney. We don't have him in the Chiefs uniform yet. But why is he ahead of Sky Moore? Well, similar in age. I just think Toney has that superstar factor. The elite burst. You're going to have to try and tackle me, and it's going to take 4 of you to bring me down. If he can ever stay healthy, that's the question there, though. If he can ever stay healthy, he's never going to be Tyreek, but he could be a new version of the next factor for this offense. Does he have the speed that Tyreek has? No, absolutely not. But does he have the short area explosiveness? Yes, he does. Does he have the ability to make people miss? Yes, he does. So at the very minimum, talented prospect I liked out of Florida, and very intriguing to see what he could do if he was healthy. Next, how about DeAndre Hopkins? Playing really, really well, coming back from that suspension this year. But I mean, how high can you really have DeAndre Hopkins in your dynasty rankings considering he's 30 years old? He'll be 31 soon. The cliff comes for everyone. And I'm not sitting here telling you that he's not playing like a top 20 wide receiver, because he is right now. But unless I'm competing, DeAndre Hopkins is not someone that I want on any of my dynasty rosters. Certainly don't want him on any of my rebuilding rosters. So you might have him higher. That's fine. Next, we have one of the most polarizing players in all of fantasy and dynasty football this last offseason. A lot of you guys didn't agree with me. You were all in on this player. I had a lot of skepticism going in. My feeling was that everyone was riding off the high of a playoff performance that he had versus the Chiefs. You probably know who it is by now. That is Gabe Davis. How would I feel about Josh Palmer? How would I feel about Josh Palmer if he was on the Bills and he was their wide receiver too? I don't think this player can ever be a dominant player in the NFL. The draft capital necessarily isn't there. Big body, 6'2", 210, but it's just been massively inconsistent. We have 2 games over 20 points, but we have a lot of games under 10. We have a 2-point game, a 5-point game, multiple 5-point games, a 6-point game, a 7-point game. It's just, he's the definition of boom or bust. And if it was going to happen for Gabe Davis, as far as him like establishing himself as a consistent option, I think this was the year that it had to happen. Not to say that he's old or anything. He's only 23 years old, but you have to anticipate this team being aware of their needs and potentially investing into wide receivers in the next draft, because that's something that I think that they could potentially do. They did it with Shakir later in the draft last year. Maybe they'll do it earlier this year. This player, it feels wrong that I have him this low. Honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. It feels wrong to have Elijah Moore this low. Talented guy, only 22 years old, could be a dominant slot wide receiver. He certainly isn't going to be able to operate all that well on the outside in the NFL at 178 pounds. Had a great stretch last year. Mike White sparked that stretch. I believe it was from week 7 to 13 last year. He was the wide receiver 4 in that span. And the big breakout happened on a Thursday Night Football in week 9 versus the Colts, where he put up 2 touchdowns. I think the entire Dynasty community is all in on agreeing that Elijah Moore is very talented. It's just, will he outshine Garrett Wilson? No, he won't. And what's the quarterback situation? I know Mike White looks fun right now, but is he the future? I don't think they have their future quarterback on the team, so it's hard for me to really put him any higher, especially in a team that is best suited when Breece Hall is dominating and running the ball, which he will be back. We have to think long term here. Next, another player, it feels really strange having them this low, but I can't put them any higher. That is Rashad Bateman, 23 years old. Honestly, I really wish Rashad Bateman was drafted by any other team. Maybe not any other team. That might be a little bit too aggressive, but I struggle to see a scenario at this point in Lamar Jackson's career in which he can support multiple receiving options on a team. Hollywood Brown last year was almost feels like an outlier at this point. But we see wide receivers mocked to the Ravens every single mock draft. It feels like every mock draft I look at, someone is mocking a receiver to the Ravens. And I don't know. I love the talent out of Minnesota. I truly love the talent. I struggle to see consistency. That's the word I'm looking for. I don't know that Bateman will ever be consistent in this offense. And I think that's why Hollywood probably left. Next, another player that was my one of my biggest regression candidates for the year. And a lot of people had pushback on that. That was Deontay Johnson. I know he's only 26 years old, just got that long-term contract. I think he's being outplayed by George Pickens. You can agree to disagree. That's fine. You guys know I've been high on George Pickens. But for me, I just felt like when you looked at the Steelers offense last year, it was emulating the run through Deontay Johnson pretty much, through screen passes, slants. But when you don't have those limitations for a veteran quarterback's arm like Big Ben, he couldn't throw the ball down the field to save his life. We don't have those limitations anymore. The offense changes, and we've seen that. So Diontae Johnson, a good wide receiver, a very good wide receiver. Is he elite? I don't want to start a fight. I don't think he's elite. But Diontae Johnson, this is as high as I could put him. There are other players that I like over Diontae Johnson. Happy if we want to agree to disagree there. And the last player in this tier is another Broncos wide receiver, and that is Jerry Jeudy. We had such high hopes for Jerry Jeudy. I thought this could be the breakout year for Jerry Jeudy. And to be fair, before his injury, he had a couple good games. But what the hell is going on in Denver? They can't get rid of Russell Wilson, so I guess they're going to have to fire Hackett, and then we'll find out if it's really Hackett or if it's Russ who's just completely washed. And if Russ is completely washed and he can't read the field anymore, and he doesn't have the legs that he used to have to escape and improvise, what does that mean for Jerry Jeudy's future? I think the best thing that could happen for Jerry Jeudy, and I would be happy to pop him at the end of this C tier, is if he gets traded in the offseason. I would love to see Jerry Jeudy get traded. New scenario could spark something new for his career. All right, on to the C tier. And at the beginning of the C tier, we have one of my guys for redraft leagues this year, and that is Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk was a my guy this year. I'm pretty happy with all my guys except for one who will remain nameless, which I completely whiffed on. But I'm pretty happy with all my guys. I think they all performed really well. Christian Kirk this year, wide receiver 10, getting a ton of targets and putting up big games, and actually has a good rest of season schedule as well. My issue is that I think they've already found their wide receiver one, and I think they did that at the trade deadline. And that is why I actually have Calvin Ridley right ahead of Christian Kirk in my rankings right now. I think people so quickly forget how dominant Calvin Ridley was. Incredible route runner, great speed, able to see the field, take advantage of defenses, great after the catch. I think we're going to see Calvin Ridley absolutely unlock Trevor Lawrence. And by the way, Zay Jones just put up a career high 145 yards playing on the outside. Christian Kirk does not operate well on the outside. So when you have Calvin Ridley join this team, Kirk in the slot is best for Kirk and it's best for Calvin, because Calvin has proven multiple years that he can play on the outside and dominate in the NFL. So you might have your concerns with his mental health. I'm not here to talk about that. I think he was done really hard done by, if you will, by the NFL with this suspension. I think it's ridiculous. The two big suspensions that we saw this year and how severe one of those should have been. Different story for a different day. But I love Calvin Ridley. Let's not forget he finished top 5. Do I expect him to be that top 5 wide receiver again? No, of course, because I would have had him ranked much higher. But I fully anticipate that Calvin Ridley can be a top 24 wide receiver for the next 3 years in Jacksonville and grow with Trevor Lawrence. I really, really like this fit for Calvin Ridley. All right, next, a player that I actually could see myself moving Calvin Ridley over, and also another player that there was a lot of disagreements on this channel this offseason about this particular player. When he was the wide receiver 12 in Dynasty in the community rankings, I just said to myself, this is way too high. And I made an entire video about it. I put it out into the world and I got a lot of hate about that video. And that player was DJ Moore. A lot of people had him as a wide receiver 1 in Dynasty, a top 12 guy. For me, I believe he was ranked around my wide receiver 26 at that time, and people were not having it. In our Discord channel, I saw multiple people on Twitter and Discord get multiple firsts for DJ Moore, get some of these rookies for DJ Moore, like the Olaves, like the Drake Londons, the Pickens. And at the end of the day, Baker Mayfield was not the answer. He was never going to be the answer. I don't know why people thought he would be. Now, you could see a rookie quarterback come into Carolina this year if they stop winning games. And could that be the answer? Yeah, it could, but that doesn't mean it will be the answer. So DJ Moore, certainly not an old player, 25 years old, but also certainly not someone that I like his situation. I personally don't think he's this elite talent like other people do. I think he's a good wide receiver 2 on a team. If DeAndre Hopkins was on this team, he would be the wide receiver 2. You know, I almost feel like his career to me feels like Bobby Trees, Robert Woods. And that's not even disrespectful because Robert Woods has had top 12 years. I just don't think he's a dominant, true, like number 1 on a team. And you can fight me in the comments. You can tell me I'm wrong. That's fine. But we could be entering a season here soon where he might be a good buy low at some point. But this is where I have him right now. I can't put him any higher. And the next player I'm going to put above him, you might be frustrated at. But let's talk about it. Juju Smith-Schuster, I have right above DJ Moore. Look, from week 6 to 9 before he got injured, he had some really, really good games. In that stretch, a 22-point game, a 25-point game, an 18-point game versus Tennessee in week 9, 12 targets. We saw Juju become the wide receiver 1 for this team. Only a 1-year deal, but he's only 26 years old. And we've seen production for him in the past. If he re-signs, let's say a 3-year deal with Kansas City, where would you guys put him in Dynasty? Where would you put him in? I mean, surely he needs to be a top 24 wide receiver in Dynasty football if he re-signs a long-term deal in Kansas City. And keep in mind, he only played 38% of the snaps last time out versus the Rams. They didn't really desperately need him either, so I expect him to be ramped up as he's coming back from that injury. Next, a first-round wide receiver who had really good play and then went down to an injury. That is Jahan Dotson, 22 years old, out of Penn State. Started the year off really strong. Now, 2 things really hurt Jahan this year. Carson Wentz injury, because with Carson Wentz, he was dominating and he had that chemistry with him all throughout camp while Terry was holding out. So Carson Wentz injury really hurt him. His own injury hurt him. And now playing with Taylor Heineke is hurting him because for Taylor Heineke, as much as we love it for Terry, it's Terry or bust. Like, that's just the reality. Okay, on to my next one is Chris Godwin. If Tom Brady was 3 years younger and I knew he would play for the next 3 years for this team, I could have Chris Godwin way higher than this, truly. Like, there's no reason why I shouldn't. Wide receiver 26 on the year, despite missing 2 games due to injury. The issue is that there felt like a very big disconnect from Tom Brady in this franchise in the offseason. Did you guys feel that as well? There was reports that he was going to go maybe to Miami, get part ownership. He was retired, tried to get out of his contract. I don't know that if Tom Brady plays again, it's in Tampa Bay. Maybe it is, but they certainly don't have the offensive line he would want anymore. And there are plenty of other teams out there who could be better suitors potentially going into next year. So if Tom Brady retires or if he moves on, you will instantly see a huge drop in Chris Godwin and Mike Evans' value in Dynasty football. And speaking of the devil, where do I have Mike Evans? I'm so sorry. I didn't even know why I didn't realize this, but I had Mike Evans. I was like, where's Mike Evans? I have Mike Evans right here in the D tier. That's my bad for not realizing that. But Mike Evans, a little bit older. And unfortunately, at the moment, with the way the offensive line is playing, he's not really able to get those deep ball attempts, at least not accurate deep ball attempts. So again, with Mike Evans is like the even bigger extent of Chris Godwin. If you lose Tom Brady, Mike Evans' dynasty value is gone like that. Nobody wants to trade for him. Even contenders probably don't want him. So these 2 wide receivers, again, Evans and Godwin, it's like it's all being reliant upon Tom Brady at this point. And we don't know what will happen when those 2 guys leave. Talented wide receivers. Evans is getting a little bit older, will be 30 years old soon. And whether you like it or not, there is inevitably a dip in value when players reach a certain age. All right, next we have Brandon Ayuk. And honestly, you could potentially convince me that Ayuk should be a little bit higher than this. But I think there are some legitimate question marks we should have around Ayuk moving forward. Will Jimmy G be the quarterback of this team going forward? If it's Trey Lance, what will his usage be like? CMC is there long term. George Kittle is going to be there long term. Deebo Samuel just signed a big deal. So he's playing really well right now. But I feel like he's more of again, like a wide receiver 2 than a wide receiver 1. And I mean, that's just the truth. I mean, they signed Debo to a long-term deal. Talented player, very young. You know, you can make an argument that he's too low for me, but as you see the next players I'm going to talk about, like how high can we really put Brandon Ayuk? You let me know. Next, we have Terry McLaurin, aka Scary Terry, playing really, really well right now with Taylor Heineke, at least getting opportunities, getting the target share that he deserves. Wide receiver 16 on the year, 27 years old, just signed the long-term deal. He's like on that edge. If I'm rebuilding, I don't necessarily want him, but if I'm contending, I think he's a fantastic flex piece moving forward. And the next player might raise some eyebrows. I might get some disagreements on him. I was a huge buy of his all offseason in Dynasty. And to be honest, not for the reasons that it's turned out that he's been good so far. It was because of Deshaun Watson. I wanted as much Amari Cooper as I could get because Deshaun Watson was coming to this team at some point, and we play Dynasty football. We don't have to think about just 1 year. But he has proven again to everyone that he is a dominant wide receiver in the NFL. Still one of the best route runners, has great hands, still has good speed. You add Deshaun Watson to this team, I think Amari Cooper, who is 28 years old, will give you that 3 years of, well, two to 3 years of like really good production. And you have to keep in mind, guys, the Browns don't have a lot of their draft picks. So if you're going to tell me, well, they'll probably draft another guy to replace when are they going to draft someone that's better than Amari Cooper? No, we'll probably sign someone in free agency. Have you seen the free agent class? People don't let wide receivers walk to free agency anymore. And they don't have money because they gave Deshaun Watson the biggest contract in the history of the NFL. And next, a player that I actually wanted to move into the next tier, I just couldn't yet. And again, if I'm going to penalize guys like Chris Godwin, DJ Moore for quarterback play, then I should probably do the same thing for a very talented wide receiver in Michael Pittman, who, what the hell is the future of the Colts? You don't know. I don't know. Very talented guy, great contested catch player, has expanded his route tree, and only 25 years old. So the future is bright for Michael Pittman, but unfortunately it doesn't look like Matt Ryan was the answer. All right, on to the B tier. At the very end of my B tier, Hollywood Brown. Okay, absolutely dominant. Another one of my guys this year. Before his injury in week 7, at the end of week 6, actually it was, he was having a very, very good year. In fact, from weeks 1 to 6, Hollywood Brown was the wide receiver 5. The wide receiver 5. Now, there was no DeAndre Hopkins, so we do have to keep that in mind. But first game back from injury this week, he already out-targeted DeAndre Hopkins. He had 8 targets. Meanwhile, DeAndre Hopkins had 6 targets. So he's already out-targeting DeAndre Hopkins, and he wasn't even 100% healthy. Now he has a bye week. He's going to come back. The connection with Kyler Murray all throughout his college career in Oklahoma, I think it's special. And I think that with D-Hop, we could really see both of Hollywood Brown and D-Hop have great opportunities one-on-one versus defenses. And the Kyler Murray hate's gone too far. He hasn't had his players, man. I mean, give him a break. The offensive line is broken down. James Conner's been injured. Hollywood been injured. D-Hop has been freaking doing things he shouldn't do. Now he's back. The defense lost a bunch of playmakers. Give my guy a break. Cliff Kingsbury. That's all I have to say. Cliff Kingsbury. All right, next we have a very talented player who, you know, again, like Gabe Davis, but I'll explain myself why I'm saying that. Like Gabe Davis, coming into the year, my concerns were consistency. The opposite side of the coin, though, for this player is that I do believe in this player's talent. I do think he has the talent to be a top 15, 16, 17 wide receiver in fantasy football, that he can finish there. Still young, the Heisman Trophy winner, Devonta Smith out of Alabama, wide receiver 25 on the year. But just like I've kind of been saying, it's inconsistent, man. I mean, we have one game that he's put up 30 points. Another game where he's put up 18, but we have a goose egg on the year. We have a 4-point game, a 7-point game, another 4-point game, a 9-point game. He's getting targeted. It's just like in an efficient offense like this, with a quarterback who is growing and proved me wrong for sure, Jalen Hurts, it's just AJ Brown is the dominant guy there, and until his situation changes and he's force-fed targets, I don't think I can rank him any higher than this. You can let me know if I'm wrong. Next, you might call it a, what would you use? Some people out there might say, man, the hype is too much because of these last couple games. But Christian Watson, as Aaron Rodgers himself said, there's not too many people on the earth who are that big and that fast in any area of sport. That is Christian Watson, 6'5", 208 pounds, and most of the time the fastest player on the field. He's finally healthy, and he's really found himself. 3 weeks in a row, over 20 points. In the past 3 weeks, he has 6 touchdowns. I don't need to tell you how many touchdowns that is compared to other players, because it's crazy what he's done the past 3 weeks. Very talented player. My concerns for him in rookie drafts this year was, I think it's going to take a while for him to really develop, and that's just been the truth. We have seen that happen. So hopefully you were able to buy him on that low before these breakout games, because I think he's going to be a very, very good player moving forward. All right, next, this is going to be very controversial, and I can already hear the comments. You're kidding me. Man, people still hate this guy. They still sleep on this guy. He's got him too low. Wide receiver 1 last year. Yep, this is where I have Cooper Kupp. Fight me if you want. Fight me in the comments. That's fine. But you look at this Rams offense and tell me that it's something that you want to be a part of moving forward. We're also talking about a wide receiver who, yes, has been dominant, but just suffered an injury that you don't understand and that I don't understand. It is very rare for a wide receiver to get surgery on a high ankle sprain. Are we sure that was a high ankle sprain? Are we sure? The last person to get surgery on a high ankle sprain who was a dominant wide receiver 1 was Michael Thomas. When that injury happened and when the Saints started falling apart, we told everyone to sell Michael Thomas. I know you don't want to hear it. Sell Michael Thomas. Get what you can get. Get multiple firsts. And we're talking about Cooper Kupp, 29 years old, obviously going to be 30 soon. Very talented wide receiver. Can he recover fully from this injury? Yes, I believe he can. But that doesn't change the fact that this offense is going to have to change in the future. Sean McVay could be out. Aaron Donald could be gone. Matthew Stafford. I mean, there are how many question marks do you want me to bring up around Cooper Kupp? Yes, he's talented, but without Matthew Stafford, he will not be a top 5 wide receiver. And that's not even to highlight Matthew Stafford. It's to say Matthew Stafford has only eyes for Cooper Kupp. That's the only person he wants to throw to. So too many question marks, man. And all the other players that I have ahead of him, I just want in Dynasty more. I believe in their futures more. I believe in building around them more. So you can fight me in the comments if you want. Look, in redraft, he was my wide receiver too. I like Cooper Kupp. I just don't want to bet him over some of these other players that I like. So, again, fight me in the comments. That's fine. But do it respectfully. Next, how about Davante Adams? Do I have a Raiders version of Davante Adams? Yes, I do. Davante Adams. Now, look, do you want Davante Adams or Cooper Kupp? That's up to you. Both 29 years old. Both have big contracts. Both have question marks on their team. Both are uber talented players. Davante Adams just doesn't have an injury that concerns me. So I'll take Davante Adams and someone who could be on a new team next year. I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders completely blow it up. Next, we got Deebo Samuel. Long-term deal in San Francisco. There's been some health issues this year with the hamstring. And also, it's just been inconsistent for Deebo Samuel. I'd like to have him higher than this. He was one of those players where he was being drafted in the 3rd round of startups this year. And I posed the question to everyone, are we sure this isn't too high for a player that's only had 1 year of consistent production? So you can let me know if this is too high or too low. Wide receiver 22 on the year. Still has the crazy ceiling, but now we got to compete with CMC in the backfield. Well, Elijah Mitchell's not healthy anymore, but we have to compete with CMC not only in the backfield, but also for targets. Brandon Ayuk is breaking out, and George Kittle is still there. So Deebo Samuel, uber talented, but there's a vast history of injuries, and he is no longer getting that 10 to 12 touches per game like he was, or just not even be prioritized that way. All right, next, we're gonna have a run of rookie wide receivers. Now, you tell me what you think about these wide receivers. You might have them a little bit different than me, but for me, this is how I currently have them ranked. A player that I was not high on, but certainly has convinced me, Drake London, coming into the year. I think our channel was known as like, oh, those are the guys who don't like Drake London. And to be honest, Drake London has convinced me. I'm all in on Drake London, but I'm not all in on the situation. And they have kind of played themselves out of getting a good rookie quarterback. When do they get a good rookie quarterback? Is Desmond Ridder the answer? I don't know. But as long as Arthur Smith is there, I don't know that we can trust a pass catcher in Atlanta, as tough as that is to say. Next, one of my favorite rookies in this class, not my favorite, but one of my favorites, was my wide receiver 2 in pre-draft rankings before they got landing spots, before they were drafted. That is George Pickens. Love me some George Pickens. I truly believe that he can be a dominant wide receiver. If you guys remember back in March, I made a video about George Pickens and I said, Pablo Picasso was born to paint. George Pickens was born to play wide receiver. And that's just the truth. I mean, super fluid wide receiver, can make all the catches, has good speed, can make the contested catches as well, win the one-on-one balls. I don't think we've seen the ceiling yet for George Pickens at 6'3", 200 pounds, and a really good rest of the season, by the way. If you can buy George Pickens right now in Dynasty, do it. You got Atlanta next, then Baltimore, Carolina, the Raiders, Baltimore again. I mean, there is a string of games here where Pickens could be a league winner in redraft leagues. Next, a player that, I liked, but I wasn't like obsessed with him like the rest of the community, and that is Garrett Wilson. Again, similar to Drake London, he's convinced me of a lot of my concerns. Can't have him much higher than this because, again, similar to Elijah Moore, what exactly is going on at quarterback there? And a lot of people are going to be upset about me having Treylon Burks higher than Garrett Wilson. That's fine. You can fight me in the comments below. Treylon Burks, one of those wide receivers that I've been advocating for all year. In the offseason, people told you about his asthma. People told you he didn't have conditioning. They told you that, he's going to be a complete bust. And before this guy ever got a chance to show who he was labeled a bust. I probably won't remember to do it, but I'll try and link a video where I showed you like 20 to 30 Twitter comments and things on Discord where people were just tanking Treylon Burks' value. And I think that was a really great time to buy him. I still want to buy him if you can. Could have a great rest of the season. But obviously, again, you do have to have concerns with quarterback play as well. Like a lot of these rookie quarterbacks, really, like that's the concern is what's the long-term quarterback play. But Burks, I still believe in 6'2", 225, can win the one-on-one balls, can be used almost like a Deebo Samuel, AJ Brown on this team. And I don't think we've seen what Treylon Burks is just yet. And now my favorite wide receiver in the 2022 NFL draft is Jameson Williams. Out of sight, out of mind. If you have a chance to go buy Jameson Williams, do it. I know there's going to be people who are like, why do you have Jameson Williams so high? Well, he was my favorite wide receiver in the class. When I evaluated his film, I saw a complete wide receiver who has elite speed. We throw the word elite around, but Jameson Williams truly has elite speed. I believe he's a good route runner, complete route tree. Is he the best pass catcher? No, but neither is Tyreek Hill. You're not going to show me any one-handed catches from Tyreek Hill or these sideline or, he uses his body well, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't have to be the best hands catcher to be successful in the NFL. Has elite speed, great route runner, can be used in any way you want to use a wide receiver. He can be used that way. I'm really excited to see him. I don't have high expectations for this year, but I think it's a good time to buy because I think next year we could really see him completely unlocked. And honestly, my dream for the Lions was for them to get Bryce Young so they could reunite. I don't know if that's going to happen anymore. They played themselves kind of out of that position, but Jameson Williams, man, I really like him. And to be honest, let's be honest here. Let's not get so caught up between you have London below all these guys. You have Pickens higher than London. You got Burks ahead of William. Like, let's not get caught up on this. This is a good class. That's what you should be taking away from this video. The 2022 wide receiver class is very good, and you should want a part of it. Like me, I want a part of all of these wide receivers. Okay, so to end the A tier, how about Amon-Ra St. Brown? Proved us wrong again this year. However, we haven't seen him yet with Jameson Williams. I don't know if that could change things, but has been absolutely dominant this year. Wide receiver 11 on the year, despite dealing with a lot of injury issues, has been heavily targeted. The closest thing to like Cooper Kupp since Cooper Kupp broke out. I mean, we could really see Amon-Ra establish himself as one of those wide receivers in the NFL who is consistently dominant, but consistently undervalued. So I didn't want to undervalue him myself. Although there could be people who might say this is undervalued. Next, a dominant wide receiver who, you know, again, I was all in on this offseason, believe in the talent. DK Metcalf, wide receiver 18 on the year. Is Geno Smith the answer? Who knows? But I think he's going to put up big numbers regardless of who it is. And then Chris Olave. That's right. I got Chris Olave this high. Has been dominant. Has shown that, in my opinion, that he is the best route runner in the class. Able to gain separation with ease. Exploits the defense. Finds the middle of the field. Finds the open area for the wide receiver to throw him open. I think last week was a catch. I don't understand how that wasn't a catch. But I think Chris Olave has more than proved that he can be an elite wide receiver in the NFL. I don't think we've actually seen him completely reach his ceiling yet. If we can get consistent quarterback play, then we could see Chris Olave truly have like one of, you know, the best Saints wide receivers since Michael Thomas. I'm not saying he'll beat Michael Thomas. Love Chris Olave. Loved him out of the draft as well. All right, next, probably one of the most ideal veteran wide receivers to have if you're competing right now. Tyreek Hill, 28 years old, dominating target share, could reach 2,000 yards. What do we really need to say about Tyreek Hill? We were big fans of Tyreek and Jalen Waddle all offseason, even with Tua there. We thought this offense was just going to be incredible, and it has been. Next, similar to Tyreek, if you're winning right now, very few wide receivers that you would want over this guy. That's Stephon Diggs. But again, these guys are both older wide receivers. Diggs is 29. You have to keep that in mind. And this is exactly where I had T. Higgins before the year. And this is where I have him now in season. What can you take away from T. Higgins? Wide receiver 12 on the year, has been getting a ton of targets. Even when Jamar Chase is on the field, T. Higgins is great. He's dominant. He is building his own career around a young ascending quarterback. He and Chase complement each other really, really well. Back-to-back games now, over 20 points. What can you say? I mean, he's truly a dominant wide receiver in the NFL. After that, this is where I have A.J. Brown. Some people might have him higher, but this is where I put A.J. Brown. Age is an issue with A.J. Brown. Nope, not at all. But again, there will be inconsistencies for him in this Eagles offense. When an offense is so good and so efficient, there will be some players who just aren't needed in certain games, and that is A.J. Brown at times. Yes, he's had spike weeks, but he's also had some games that have let you down, inevitably, like most receivers in the NFL. Next, a receiver that a lot of people were skeptical of coming in. We had him ranked this high coming into the year. Thought he could truly establish himself as a dominant wide receiver. After a shaky start, he has proven that. Wide receiver 7 on the year, and he can only get better from here. Dominant play, has looked the part of a dominant wide receiver, making incredible circus catches, one-handed catches. I think that last one should have been a touchdown, but we can debate that till the cows come home. And then to finish the A tier, this is where I have Jalen Waddle. Now, you want Jalen Waddle, you want CeeDee Lamb, you want A.J. Brown, you want to swap those guys around, that's fine. But Jalen Waddle is one of those receivers who could have a very long career based on his speed. Very good route runner, underrated route runner actually, has been really efficient with Tua. His career has not been hurt by Tyreek. It's been helped by Tyreek. And when Tyreek at some point moves on, Jalen Waddle will still be there. in that same offense with Mike McDaniels. One of those players in the NFL, very few who anytime he touches the ball can score a touchdown. And that is very, very valuable in today's NFL. That is it for the A tier. So 2 players left. I don't think we really need to discuss why these players are great, right? A lot of people are going to have a big debate on who is the number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. And even more specifically now in Dynasty football. For me right now, the number 1 receiver in Dynasty football is Justin Jefferson. And I don't really think it should be a debate. Like, should we really have a debate about that? 23 years old, 3 years in a row of dominant production. Truly dominant production. On the year, currently wide receiver 2 right behind Stephon Diggs. Has over 1,200 yards, 5 touchdowns, 81 catches. I mean, we're talking about Tyreek, but let's not forget about Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson actually has 1 less yard than Tyreek Hill right now in the year. They could both hit 2,000 yards. I don't need to tell you why Justin Jefferson is good. You know why he's good. And my wide receiver 2 at the moment is Jamar Chase. I know he's been injured, but even when he's not been injured, he's averaging 10.5 targets per game. The last 2 games that he played before he got injured, both were over 30 fantasy points, had 2 touchdowns in both of them. He is a dominant wide receiver in the NFL. We don't need to debate that. So that's my top 60. This ended up being a very long video, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you can understand the reasons why I made some of these decisions. Now, you can disagree. I mean, that's natural for us to all have differences of opinion, and we actually welcome that on this channel. So why don't you comment down below? Tell me what you think is too high. Tell me what you think is too low. If you enjoyed the video, let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, and let me know if I should do some more positions. I might do tight ends and quarterbacks here soon as well. But if you made it all the way to the end of this video, I just want to see who made it all the way to the very, very, very end. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, I want to know the best movie that you've seen this year. A movie that was released in theaters or on the streaming platform. The best movie that you've seen this year, that came out this year, okay? And the only reason I'm asking that is because I like watching good movies. And if you have one out there, I would like to know. So thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Huge love.
Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos.
Watch it.
You can also subscribe.
Right now.
If you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/FantasyLand fam.